Welcome to Battleground Politics. I'm Mayk, and I'm talking to the city's new managing director. It's a big job, and it's like Philadelphia's chief operating officer. Carlton Williams grew up in the city, and he's held multiple jobs in Philadelphia in multiple administrations. Mayor Parker has chosen him as managing director, replacing Adam Thiel. I talked to Williams about taking on the new role, how he handled another big job in the spotlight, and what's on his plate right now. Carlton Williams, the new managing director of the city of Philadelphia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren, for having me. Really appreciate it.
I'm glad to sit down with you. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you are going to be responsible for as the managing director. I want to talk a little bit about your approach. And then a couple things maybe from your old job that I'm sure are still kind of hanging around. But let's talk about this new position. Congratulations.
Thank you.
First of all.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Tell me how you approach this job. We have seen managing directors over the years. Some are more visible than others. Some, Philadelphia residents know their names. They see them. They see them out on TV, for example, on stuff. And some are more behind the scenes. Tell me what your approach is to this position.
Oh, I'm definitely the former. The previous one, because I believe in being out with the public, and I'm out at events and community meetings. My relationships with block captains and community organizers actually defines and makes me who I am, because they have a relationship with me. They can call me to get things done, whether it be fixing a pothole or picking up the trash or anything that they need to get through government. I like to have that direct relationship with people. It makes them feel like they're responsive to their needs. And one of the things that I want to make sure that our entire government that's under me is to be very proactive and responsive to the needs of citizens. So we're going to be out there. Mayor Parker has set the tone of a government that she wants us to see, touch, and feel. I've always believed that you can't govern behind a desk, that you have to get out and understand what the issues are, no matter where they are in the city of Philadelphia, so that you can understand what people are concerned about, and then you can have a better understanding of how to address them. So I'm definitely going to be a person that you can, I've always been that way throughout my entire career, where residents can approach me, they'll have access to me, and certainly I want them to see me on the street and ask me questions. Certainly want to be that type of approachable leader.
I bet people will have all kinds of questions. It is Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
So this is a change that is happening, though, in the city mid-administration. And so it is not happening with a change of administration where everything is new. So what can Philadelphia residents expect? How do you think having you in this role will be different for Philadelphians than what they saw with Director Adam Thiel? I
think one of the things that I bring to the table is that I've been here for 26 years in Philadelphia government. I'm a native Philadelphian, and so I grew up in this city. My family is here. My mother and father was born here, so I truly understand Philadelphia and their neighborhoods, and that's what Philadelphia is made up of, a city of neighborhoods and communities that are very close-knit. And I've been visiting mainly all of them throughout my career, especially as the Sanitation Commissioner and the Streets Commissioner, whether I be attending community meetings or block captain rallies. Residents can see me all the time, and I kind of understand many of the concerns they have. Also, my role as the Office of Clean and Green Director, you've witnessed this on a number of occasions that you've seen us launch different programs in different neighborhoods. I've been throughout the entire city of Philadelphia, so I think me having a firm understanding of what residents see every day, I try to manage through the eyes of residents and what they want. They want clean streets. They want potholes fixed. They want safe, clean drinking water. They want safety. All of those things are important to residents, and they're important to me. And primarily, that's how I plan on delivering the services to our citizens as well. I want to make sure that residents understand that their concerns are our top priority.
Do you feel like that's different than the way Adam Thiel approached the job?
I certainly think a managing director Thiel did a great job. He just had a different style than I do, and my style is to be out front and with people. I think his was a little different, which is fine as well, because we still were effective. We managed to go through a great summer with the America 250 events and all of those things that fell into the managing director's office. I just think our styles were very different in terms of me being out in the open and more accessible to the public.
We talked a little bit about how you've had a number of different jobs in the city. This one's a little bit different, though, and this is bigger.
Absolutely.
And there is a lot in your portfolio. If you look at the chart of how things are organized in the city, there's a lot under there. Yeah. It's also just a role that requires you to play a certain part in the city, and you know, for example, I about a week or so ago there was an officer who was shot. I happened to look up at the TV screen and saw city leaders out there. I saw you standing there, and I took note of that because I thought, you know, this was a new moment for you. How do you feel? Have you thought about that, and how this is a little bit different than some of the other things you've done for the city? Yeah,
that was an unfortunate tragedy, and of course our prayers go out to the families involved. And it showed me the seriousness of what this office is all about. Has to be in responsiveness to some very serious, concerning situations, but people expect you to be there in that moment, and I understand that. That's the seriousness of the role of the managing director's office. They're responsible for all things good and bad throughout the city of Philadelphia, and the public expects a response. The police expect to be supported on issues like that, and if there's a tragedy within the police department or the fire department or anywhere across the city of Philadelphia, they want to see government present. And my goal and responsibility is to make sure I'm there, supportive, and doing everything I can to help them get through some very difficult times. But it did, Lauren, it did show me the reality of what the managing directors is all about. This is very serious business that we're in when we're trying to talk about the safety of residents, when we're talking about taking care of people, when you're managing 36 departments under the managing director's office, so I believe about 14,000 employees. Yes, that could be overwhelming to someone, but to me, it's a great opportunity to show how Philadelphia government is, how great it is, and how we can respond to the challenges that may exist in a city like Philadelphia.
I wanted to ask you about one of the jobs that you had before. You oversaw L&I during the Nutter administration. It was a little bit rocky. There were some rocky times in there. It included, but is not limited to, the collapse on Market Street where 6 people died. And there were critiques in general of how the office was run. The controller at the time suggested you should lose your job. You did not. But when Mayor Kenney came in, you stayed in his administration, but not heading up L&I. He said that wasn't a good fit for you. And now you're in a role where L&I, in its current form, is one of the things you are overseeing. Why should residents believe that you are up to it?
First of all, let me tell you that it was a tragedy that I haven't forgotten. Throughout my entire career, you know, I look back at that moment in that area, and I remember the sadness and the pain that was caused by that day to a lot of people. And you said 6 people died. Was actually a 7th. One of my inspectors committed suicide because he was in so much pain. It's not that he did anything wrong. He was just in so much pain and grief. And then unfortunately, he took the ultimate step. But I think one of the things that I can say from that moment is that we have a responsibility to ensure that tragedies like that don't happen again. And so here's the things that people may not know, that what we did after the tragedy. We changed demolition standards. So now it requires a Class A and a Class B license so that people are qualified coming in. That did not exist prior to that tragedy. We implemented different programs, a construction site task force and a compliance division to ensure that they had the proper permits, that they also were following the rules and regulations. And ultimately, we created new signage for all construction sites. So if you go around any major construction site around the city of Philadelphia and you see the sign that has the name, the organization, the project description, and where you can get information, because we thought that was very important when residents see something that may be going wrong, that they can respond to it. That did not exist prior to that tragedy. That exists today. So I'm saddened that, and I'm always going to remember what happened on 22nd and Market Street, but what I've learned, the lessons learned from that made Philadelphia a better place by the things that we had to put in place to ensure that those tragedies don't happen again.
Do you feel like you as a manager are different than you were then?
Absolutely. It was eye-opening to me because of the devastating tragedy when someone loses their life as a result of a situation like that. While we were not directly responsible for it as a government, you always have to take responsibility. As the leader in that department, you certainly have to take a role in saying, I need to do things differently, or we need to do things differently as a government. That is the things that I've taken with me to ensure that that type of tragedy, or to try to prevent that tragedy from happening again. We have to be more proactive and responsive to the needs of citizens, especially when it comes down to public safety.
In your role now, you may be part of taking a look at the aftermath and the steps after another deadly collapse, which was the Grays Ferry garage collapse this spring. Have you seen the status report on that?
We're still reviewing that, and we're still looking at the
You've seen it, though?
I have not seen it
not.
that directly, but that is one of the things that I have on my agenda to take a look at immediately, yes.
What do you want to know from it?
Well, I want to know, of course, what can be done differently to prevent those type of tragedies from happening. When you come down to the building code and building industry, that's a very dangerous business. And we need to make sure that we've done everything that we can as a government in terms of regulations. We want to make sure inspections were done. All of those things are important because obviously you can see the result that someone can lose their life over these type of things. So that is the first thing that I want to see, is that we as a city did everything that we could do to try to make sure that those things don't happen again in the future.
This is a process, a months-long process. I think that something is expected to be released in October, but this happened in April. In the meantime, are you aware, have there been changes in the way things do operate with L&I, with precast concrete, for example?
So we've just appointed, there's a leadership change in,
Yes.
in that area. So I think that's still being reviewed right now. And the commissioner and his team is actually looking at those processes to see what can be done differently. If anything went wrong, then we want to try to identify them. And again, look at the codes, making sure they're up to standard to ensure that they are there for the benefit of public safety.
Okay. Another thing that will be under your purview is streets, which is something that you are very familiar with from a prior position that you have. I feel like we say that a lot with you. There was the potential for something new in that department when the mayor proposed a delivery tax that would have funded a pothole squad, I think is what they called it. City Council decided not to go forward with that. What does that mean for addressing potholes in the city? Because you don't have that money for that squad.
Well, we still have to address them. And obviously, we're going to try to find different ways to create a pothole squad in the city of Philadelphia.
Whether you think you still can?
We are certainly going to look at our current existing budget. And because that's a priority for the mayor, when you talk about safer, cleaner, greener, you're talking about streets as well. And so we need to prioritize our infrastructure. We have a very old, antiquated city. We need to make sure that we get our state of good repair, our roadways in a state of good repair. That is important, not only for the safety of our residents, but for the economy, for people that want to do business here, and certainly for the residents who are concerned about, hitting those and just damaging their vehicles. All of those things are important to us. So that is a priority of mine in terms of being the managing director, to figure out a way to ensure that we create a unit that's dedicated and can be proactive and responsive to fixing road repairs and defects, and also trying to get our streets back to a state of good repair, looking at the way we pave our streets, also working with other departments like the water department to ensure that the infrastructure below is sound before we actually go in and make those repairs, so that we can make sure that the longevity of the paving process lasts for 10 to 15 years as it is expected to do, and not tear it up. Those things are what I hope to bring to the MDO's office to ensure that the investments that we make in our infrastructure last for a long time.
Do you have, I know there's a lot on your plate, do you have a timeline in mind when you think you might be able to create something?
Certainly we want to do it this fiscal year. That's one of the goals of mine. Again, if looking at internal processes to be able to see if we can.
I mean, technically we just started a new fiscal year.
Yeah.
I was just doing the math in my head.
Yeah. So as quickly as possible. So pothole season usually starts in the spring. That's when the freeze-thaw process ends. By the time we get through this winter cycle, we hope to have a team out that's dedicated to proactively look for those type of issues and repair them before they actually become public complaints. And that is always my goal, is to try to look for them before the public actually has a chance to say, this thing has been in this condition for weeks and you haven't done anything about it. I think that's our goal, to try to get a team out there and address those issues before they happen.
Okay. One of the things that when the mayor came in, she really put a priority on was addressing Kensington and the neighborhood there and the challenges there and safety there, and different parts of the city government are sort of responsible for different pieces of that. And the managing director is responsible for a piece of that. Tell me what is next in that vein for you. Yeah,
so I had spent my first couple of days as managing director down in Kensington, meeting with the residents. Me and the mayor did a walkthrough of the neighborhood, ultimately trying to figure out what we can do in addition to what has already been done to improve the quality of life while still being compassionate to those who are suffering from addiction. I think it's a balancing act that can be done. She's established Riverview, which is a huge step in the right direction in terms of getting people the treatment they need to get them back to self-sustainability. Certainly residents are frustrated, and we saw the anger in some of the residents who said, I have to live in conditions that most Philadelphians would not tolerate, especially with, loitering, and then ultimately the trash that comes along with it, and so many other quality of life issues. So I think we need to do even more down in that location to be able to help those residents while still trying to get people the treatment they need. That's a big challenge. We understand that. I referred to it a few weeks ago as a marathon and not a sprint, but now I'm changing my position on that. It's a marathon and a sprint, because people want to see immediate action. They want to see clean streets. They definitely want to be able to have their children walk to school without having to walk over needles. Those are the things that we can do immediately on a day-by-day basis to ensure the quality of life is maintained. The long-term marathon model is that we have to get people into treatment. We have to attack the open-air drug trafficking that goes on down in that location, and that is a long-term goal that we're working on with our partners, our great commissioner from the police department, Kevin Bethel, and our public safety director, Adam Thiel. We're constantly meeting to discuss ways in which we can expedite that process and get people the help and the treatment that they need. As you walked around down there, did you identify anything that you think or that you and the mayor agreed on is the next step? Yes, certainly we want to make sure that the conditions of, once we come in and clean out an area, they tend to move into the neighborhoods. And so being able to strategize around making sure we can do both and trying to get them into treatment is the key, Lauren. We look at... So it doesn't sort of bleed into another area? It doesn't bleed into another area, and I think that's what the biggest frustration... Yeah, that's the biggest frustration that I'm hearing from residents now. Especially, I just met with them last week. They're saying that, it's great that you're keeping Kensington Avenue now clean and businesses are open, but what about our residents? What about our residential communities? And so being able to simultaneously do both is our next step. Okay. I want to ask you something about your the job you are leaving, Clean and Green, because there has been a sanitation contract that has been up in the air and then awarded and under negotiations, and I sat down with the sanitation commissioner not long ago, and we talked about where things were. That was a number of weeks ago, though, and things were still in negotiation. Can you tell me where things stand right now in terms of the Reworld contract, which would involve the incineration part? That's been the controversial part. Is that contract done? So our work is done in terms of having the contract prepared and ready to submit to City Council. That is the next step in the process.
So both sides have now agreed?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's past the 10-day review period in which the vendors had a chance to contest. I think one did try to contest the outcome of the bids, but I think that's been resolved now. So the work that we've done in terms of making the recommendation for a contract is done and ready to submit to City Council for a bill. This is the next step is where it gets contentious when we have City Council who has to vote on that bill. And I'm sure that the Stop Trashing Our Air Act, or where Councilmember Gaultier is going to come up. And that's something that we're going to have to address in terms of why we selected ReWorld to remain a part of the process when this bill is out pending. I can tell you this, Lauren, is that, we've looked at the data, we studied the EPA reports, we certainly look at all of the recommendations in terms of what is, responsible for and what's happening in Chester. And while we want the same things as Councilmember Gaultier wants, we just have a different means of getting there. We don't think that bill addresses the key issue of waste reduction. It simply moves the trash from one part of the spectrum to the next without addressing the key issues down in Chester. We represent 15% of the waste that they process. It's 30% of our waste that we send there, but it's 15% of that.
I thought it was
facility.
40.
No.
Is it 30 under this new contract?
It's 38%
38
under the pre-existing contract.
Okay.
And because we have other vendors in, that's likely to go down. Once it goes to Chester, though, that only represents about 15% of what they process at that facility and burn and incinerate. So that 15% is likely to get redistributed somewhere else. So you're still going to have the problems down in Chester while we've exacerbated the problems here in Philadelphia by taking it to landfills. We're going to pay more money to take it longer distances. The emissions are going to increase. And what we're actually doing is contributing to the environmental problems that she complains about rather than solving the issue.
So what happens if City Council rejects the contract?
If they reject the contract, then we start the process all over again. And
with bids?
We have to go out and rebid the whole process.
And how long does that take?
It took us for this contract because we added an environmental impact assessment. It took longer than it normally would, but usually it takes, in order for us to bid, about 3 to 6 months in order to bid. We have a current extension of our older contract in play. If that was the case, then we would have to look at extending it even further while we rebid that process.
Okay. Let me make sure that I understand the numbers, because you were saying it's currently 38% is 38% of Philadelphia's trash goes to ReWorld and is incinerated. Under the new contract that both sides have now agreed to, that you'll be submitting to City Council, what's the number?
Well, that number it's still being assessed in terms of what each vendor received. It's 38% under the current contract. That number is actually going to go down because we have additional vendors in play.
So there doesn't have to be a number in the contract right now?
There has to be a number in terms of the tonnage. I will get you what that percentage equates to a little later. Okay.
All right. Thank you. There's as you're coming in, we talked about things that touch a number of different pieces of the city. You're also coming, we were just talking about City Council. City Council passed some ice out legislation that the city is implementing, and I know that some of that goes to the city solicitor's office, and they do trainings, and that's not your not your thing. But you do have an immigration, the Office of Immigration is under your purview. And so I wanted to ask how you're approaching that, because I know there have been some immigrants' rights advocates who've been asking for some information about how this is going to be implemented. Are there going to be, when are signs going to go up? What's your understanding of how that's going to happen? Yeah, so we've been working to comply with the legislation that has been passed by City Council. We're in the process of designing the signs right now to place at all public buildings. We're also prioritizing the high visibility locations, because that's important to get those signs up as quickly as possible. But we're working on those areas, and we're going to comply with whatever the law and legislation states in that area. Okay. Do you know what's the timeline for getting those signs up?
So I don't have a timeline. We're working on them now. As we get them in, we'll start the installation process, but it won't be a long, drawn-out process. We'll do it as quickly as possible.
Okay, all right. As we talk about your new responsibilities, you were in a job that was brand new. Mm-hmm. You were the first one in that. What's the future of that job?
The Office of Clean and Green,
yeah.
we fully expect, we put a lot of work in that, so it definitely is going to, that position is going to get filled. I will be doing a round of interviews to select the best candidate for the position.
Okay, so you'll be part of that?
Absolutely. And actually, Clean and Green won't be a standalone department. It will fall under the managing director's office. So I'm kind of bringing that approach.
It will now come under you as opposed to the way it was before.
Yes.
You reporting directly to the mayor. Okay.
It will fall under the manager.
Did you report directly to the mayor before?
I reported directly to the mayor. It was a cabinet position.
Okay.
So the Clean and Green office will report to me, and then I'll continue to report to the mayor. But yes, we did a lot of great things in the city of Philadelphia in terms of cleaning neighborhoods and implementing new programs and initiatives that we think made a huge difference in the amount of litter that's on our streets. We want to continue that momentum. The greener side of it is what we're focused on now, since we've established several cleaning programs to address litter conditions. So we're looking at ways in which we can improve vacant lots that are constantly being dumped on. We're also looking at, of course, supporting additional trees that could be planted in neighborhoods, and also a long-term waste plan is what we want to put in place in terms of our next steps for the Office of Clean and Green. But we're extremely excited about the work that was done in the first couple of years, and we want to continue that momentum.
Is there any, are there any other changes to what you'll oversee? Are you taking in anything new or losing anything?
No, right now,
okay.
I think the Clean and Green was a big part of it. So that brings back sanitation, it brings back the community life improvement program.
Which are things you're very familiar with.
Very familiar with. And so we want to make sure that we continue that one Philly United City approach where government is working closely together. We're breaking down silos. All those things are very important to us. It's important to our mayor. She's very big on making sure departments work together to address critical unmet needs in the city of Philadelphia. And the best way to do that is to work together. So bringing them in department only makes sense. I'm
going to ask you something that I asked your predecessor, Adam Thiel, when he was in this position. The city's going to see you, and they're going to hear from you. As you said, that they do that. They've done that in your other positions as well. Do you have any interest in running for office one day?
No. Right now, I'm focused on being a managing director. I think this has my complete 100% attention. I have not thought about running for office. I've been on the operations side throughout my whole career, and I enjoy what I do here, which is delivering services for the residents and the people of Philadelphia. I have not thought about any future plans to run for any office. I certainly
Are you opposed to it?
I'm not opposed to it. I don't know what the future would hold for me, but I look at our mayor, and she does an outstanding job leading the city. I am so proud to work for her and how she stands up on tough issues. Certainly, if I'm going to ever think about it, she's a great person to learn from. She's intelligent. She's super energetic. She's out in the public. All of those things make a great mayor. And so if I ever was to run for some kind of office, I certainly have a good mentor right in Mayor Sherelle Parker to follow. So I'm excited to work for her and excited to continue doing the work of the city through her vision for a safer, cleaner, greener Philadelphia.
We'll leave it there. Carlton Williams, new managing director for the city of Philadelphia. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Lauren.
Great to talk to you.
Appreciate you having me. Absolutely. Yep. My pleasure.
That does it for this episode of Battleground Politics. You can find more episodes right now on NBC10.com, on our NBC Philadelphia YouTube channel, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.